How's it going, everybody? So today we're, not joined by the other two members of my podcast, but today we're going to be talking about Jupiter's Legacy, as you can see from the pictures behind me. That's what I'm getting at. So Jupiter's Legacy is the new Netflix superhero series that is coming out. It's already came out last week Friday, as of this recording, and it is about a superhero group led by the Utopian, played by Josh Duhamel, who have essentially, protected the world since the 20s, or rather the 30s, into the modern day, and now the new heroes are coming up. Some of them children of the superhero team known as the Union of Justice, others who are just other superheroes, but they are starting to question the rules and code of the old guard, and so it starts to lead to this debate of who's right, who's wrong. Is maybe the old ways of doing things better, or is the new ways of doing things maybe the way it has to work, because the way that justice reigns in the 1930s doesn't really apply in a modern setting. And so it's an interesting idea. This is based off of the Mark Millar comic book of the same name, by the way, but also they derive some stuff from also Jupiter's Circle, which is the prequel series that was coming out as well to support Jupiter's Legacy. And right off the bat, if I have to give the things I like the most, it's definitely that they do try and speak to the idea of, is this old credo. I mean, we've seen it in 1,000 comic books and TV shows, superhero TV shows, of this credo of we don't kill people. Does that really hold up in a modern day setting when the rules are kind of unapologetic to that idea? You have a lot of people that they're getting more extreme. They even say it here that the supervillains in this universe get more extreme, and so that starts to lead to this interesting concept. However, that for me is where the positives kind of end, because this show is pretty boring. I was bored for most of it. There's not the issue really lies in that there's not a lot going on as far as like action and really crazy stuff happening. So it relies a lot on the dialogue and the discussions. And while I say it's great that they bring up those ideas, I really love that, the issue comes into play that they don't really do anything with it. They don't really ask really hard-hitting questions. Like, in fact, most of the time when people are challenging the code, as they call it, which is basically them just deciding they're not going to kill people, or kill supervillains rather, the opposing side brings up some good points. The idea that if a supervillain kills a hero, why should they be allowed to still live? And at what point does it go from being, okay, I'm a superhero, to self-defense? If you're a superhero who's not very well prepared for the villain you have to face that day, or what have you. So they bring up those questions on the opposing side, but on the for side, there's very little great dialogue, I feel, to really challenge that opposition, past just them being like, well, we're better than that. And that's good and all, but when you're trying to have that debate and be like the superhero show that's going to really talk about these issues, you would really think they would dive a little deeper into it and really analyze what it is that would be a good argument for the code to still be important and still be relevant even in a modern setting. Now, as far as the acting goes, it ranges. Some people are really good. I love Matt Lanter. I think he does a fantastic job. Ben Daniels, really all the old guard, they do a great job. Josh Duhamel, Leslie Bibb, they are fantastic in their roles. Granted, the makeup department did them wrong. Like, like them wigs ain't getting it. And they aren't the only ones, because some of the new people, some of the younger characters have wigs too, and they don't look good at all. Some of the aging makeup doesn't look good either. Like, it's one of those things where it's weird, because it's like they clearly wanted to have the same actors play their older versions of themselves, but at the same time, it's like, all right, well, you could at least put some money into like give them better makeup and that sort of thing, so we can maybe believe that Josh Duhamel is like an old man. But it is what it is. Costumes too. Also, the costumes, while they are very comic accurate, they don't look very. They just don't look like they really fit. They look kind of uncomfortable to wear. And maybe that's just the way the actors kind of move in them, or maybe that's their design, but it just doesn't look very comfortable. It looked very manufactured. I don't know. It just looked weird to me. But on the acting side, the old people, the older, characters, they're pretty good. Especially when we hit the flashbacks, where we go, because this show has a lot of flashbacks. We spend majority of the time actually in the 1920s to 1930s, in which we see the origin of how these people got their powers in the first place. In that stuff, it's really good. However, it's the modern day where it kind of gets a little cliche. I would say there's not really much going on with a lot of these younger characters, and especially because two of our leads are younger characters. Now, I don't remember these actors' names, so you'll forgive me. I might put them on the screen or something if I don't look them up and include them in this review. But the two people who play Brandon and Chloe, who are the children of the Utopian, they're very hit or miss. Sometimes they have great scenes where they're really like diving deep, and you feel it. And other times they're kind of like, they feel like they're going through the motions. But I feel like that's halfly their performance, and the other half being that they are playing very cliche characters. That of bratty kids who have daddy issues. But have all the money in the world, in this case because they have superpowers, but same thing. So they have no responsibility, and one's vying for dad's approval, the other one rejects it outright, and both of them are just terrible kids. And because it's that cliche that you've seen it in 1,000 TV shows, 1,000 movies, or whatever, it doesn't feel special. Nothing feels really special about their character. Now, granted, in the comic book, they are the exact same way. I have read the series, so I know that Brandon and Chloe, when they first start out, are those characters. So it's not, that's why I say it's like also halfly maybe their performance too is why I wasn't really as engaged. But at the same time, though, and that'll lead to my biggest complaint that I'll get to later, with the comic versus the show. But nonetheless, yeah, like Brandon and Chloe just wasn't really doing it for me personally. Although the one younger character I was really into, as he just really was one of the most entertaining things on the screen, is the actor who plays Hutch. He's fantastic. And I think that's because this show dedicates a whole episode to him. So you really get to know him, know who he is, what his world is like, how he interacts with people. Like, he gets to really kind of be the star of the show for a little bit. And so after that episode, you just love this guy. Like, he's incredible. He has such great charisma. He's got great comedic timing. So the jokes they do with him really land. And on top of that, he just seems like once you get more into his story, you really can feel for him. You really get to kind of grow to appreciate him as a character. So I hope if they get a season 2, more Hutch, please. he was one of the standouts. amongst the younger generation crowd. My biggest complaint, though, if I have to, like, and this is going to lead into my score of why I feel the way I feel, is that if you watched our Invincible review, which, link in the description, but also you can find us on Spotify, all the places you can find a podcast, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, do all that stuff. But if you look at our Invincible review, I said that my criticism of that show was that it was moving pretty slow with its biggest twist of the show. I have to rescind that, because this show is so much slower than Invincible is, and to the point where it's almost criminal. Because, and maybe it's a timing thing, because Jupiter's Legacy is coming out after Falcon and Winter Soldier, WandaVision, Invincible, and then in between other superhero shows that are going to come out later. So it unfortunately it has the that kind of competition where it has to be compared and competed with these other superhero shows. But the fact of the matter is that this one was struggling to grab my attention like those other ones, and it's mostly because this show is really slow. We spend a lot of time with those flashbacks trying to get to them getting their powers, and in the comics this happens in maybe a few pages, and then they go to this mysterious place and they get powers. And then the rest of Jupiter's Circle, which is that prequel series that mostly deals with all of this stuff, they're just superheroes doing superhero things, and we learn more about the characters. In this show, all 8 episodes have flashbacks where we see their entire journey to get there and get the powers, which would be fun, and the acting's good and all, but the problem is that the main story, at least the one we're supposed to really be invested in, takes place in modern day. So we know they're gonna get the powers, so all this drama of is he gonna get them to go with him on this journey? Is he gonna how is he gonna get the crew together? None of it holds weight, because we know they're gonna get the powers. Is why in Jupiter's Circle, because Jupiter's Legacy Volume 1 had already come out at that point, they knew for Jupiter's Circle, Mark Millar, who wrote the book, knew it's not important how they got the powers. They got them. That we can breeze past that and focus exclusively on what they did with them. And this, my phone is buzzing. Here we go. So we can focus, the show focuses up on, the book focuses up on what did they do with these powers. In this show, and I'm sure it's a budget thing, probably, they didn't have the budget to really get into the powers. Maybe they're saving that for season 2, because then they're all right, if we have a season 2, we can get more money. However, it still just makes the show boring. It makes the show super boring and slows it down to a crawl at times. There's some episodes where flashbacks are majority of the episode. And I'm not gonna lie, I wasn't always engaged in it, because I was just alright, but when do they get the powers? Because I know they're going to get them. None of this drama matters to me in the grand scheme of things. In fact, I would rather prefer if they wanted to do something different, because the flashbacks are really one of the things that makes this show very unique, is that it's a period piece and a superhero show. So, it'd be cool to see some superheroes in the 1930s or 40s. Granted, that would make the show expensive, because they have to pay for sets, cars, costume, all that stuff. But it could be really fun to see if they wanted to do maybe just Jupiter's Circle, and that be just the show. But they want to do Jupiter's Legacy. And so in Jupiter's Legacy, some other great twists happen that I won't spoil here in case you haven't read the book, or you've strictly watched the show and you are enjoying the show. Then there's some twists that happen later on that are big, and I was like, okay, are we gonna get those in this show? No, the most of the show, the modern day part of it, is maybe the first 2 issues at best. And so you're wait, first 2 issues? Each episode's an hour long. So are you telling me they stretch out for 8 hours 2 issues? Yes, they stretch out 2 issues of this comic, and they do nothing with it. They do no interesting things. At best, I think the most interesting thing they do is they do introduce some characters who aren't important now in the comic, but come up later in the comic book. They bring them in now. However, I think a lot of them they kind of waste. I won't spoil for you what that is, but they waste them. So overall, you have, yes, a superhero show, but you have a superhero show that is coming around the bend of all these superhero shows that came out at the same time or back to back, and there's nothing here that I feel like is very eye-catching. There's you have okay performances at best, a really slow plot, really slow character development, and stuff that just you feel like you've already seen before, done better. This is supposed to be a deconstruction of superheroes, and we've had so many shows recently that have been a much better deconstruction. I mean, you have The Boys, Invincible, even what they're doing with some of the new Marvel shows. They're trying to deconstruct their own mythos a little bit. So we're just hitting a point where it feels like Jupiter's Legacy is coming just at the wrong time, or at the very least is going to be the first one that people will say, you know what, we have enough superhero shows, we don't need another one. So if I have to give this a grade, I'd probably give it a C- at best. It's very average. Again, it does earn a little bit of fanfare for me because of the 1930s, 1920s stuff. That stuff's not so bad. It just really slows down. But I mean, if you can really get into the drama of what's going on, you might have fun with it. But as far as the main plot goes, with the modern kids, like, if they do get a season 2, they really need to amp that up and speed it up, because I know they don't want to speed it up because of what the twist is, and they have certain things they probably want to do, but I don't know if I want to watch season 2 of this and it be this slow again, continue to be this slow. It needs to move up faster. It does. I mean, you have a bunch of shows, it's not like Invincible. Like, Invincible has like 150 issues, and Jupiter's Legacy has, I think, maybe 30. So it's not like there's a lot to pull from, and it's a very linear story. Invincible has a bunch of different side plots and characters and stuff, so Invincible can drag out its twist because they have like a bunch of other things they can throw in the episodes to kind of diversify and make it feel like there is still stuff going on. This story is a very linear story, and you cannot drag it out unless you are going to do some interesting stuff with it. Like I said before, like, dive really deeply into the discussion of the new guard versus the old. Is killing supervillains right, in a modern setting, or maybe we should stick with the old ways? Like, if you're gonna ask those questions, I feel like that would have been the much better thing to do if they were gonna drag it out this long, and really like have deep discussion that maybe challenged the audience and made you think, so that way you'd be invested. Because I feel like this is gonna be a show that people just binge, because you can binge it. All 8 episodes are out, so you can binge the whole thing. And then, I feel like people are going to binge it and they're going to forget about it. I mean, we have Loki coming out next month. So, so it's like, this was supposed to be probably the show that they probably wanted people to be talking about for the whole month of May, because nothing's, superhero related is coming out. And it just fell flat on its face. So that's my review of Jupiter's Legacy. Comment below. Tell me if you enjoyed it. Maybe you disagree with me. Maybe there's something you found enjoyable out of it. Maybe you agree with me. Why? What type of things did you think, or whatever? If you have seen it, and if you've read the book, how do you think it compares up to the book? Do you think it's a good representation? Do you think it could be better? Who knows? Comment below, let me know. And for more things on The First Ones to Die, you can follow us at The First Ones to Die on all our social medias, as well as listen to our fabulous podcast on YouTube here, but also on Spotify, Google Podcasts, and Apple Podcasts. You can find us there, talking about all types of stuff. Versus movies, TV shows, pop culture, it's all there. So check that out. And yeah. So I'll see you guys for the next one.